Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of The Outer Realm. We're broadcasting live right here in the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM from the beautiful city of New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey since the very beginning. So thank you, Folgers. We appreciate you so very much. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, aka Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, who has basically contributed his voice, his music, and his time for the amazing intro that you all just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found anywhere that good music can be found. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind all of our banners and artwork here that you see, the logos at the Outer Realm. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Oh boy, tonight we are very excited because we welcome back our dear friend and who we call a frequent flyer guest, Preston Dennett. Been on many times and he's scheduled for several more times. So we're just so grateful and we just love him and everything he's got to talk about. And when we spoke with Preston, I said, what do you want to do this time? You've been on like lots, and we just love having you on. What do you want to talk about? And because he's got a new book coming out, he goes, well, we'll talk a little bit about that. But then we just kind of got talking about things that were kind of going on out there. And he was just like, okay, you know what? Because I have something to say about that. It's like, perfect.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear. I want to hear, what he's got to say.
I can't figure out. Do you see my big brother in the chat room is, he knows I'm a squirrel. It's called Zeppeli. And I can make them for you, Wayne.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I can't even.
He wrote Patsky. I'm like, what? And then he wrote that yummy Italian donut.
Oh my gosh. You keep talking. I'm just popping up the hellos.
Yeah, there's only two. There's Zeppole. There's Zeppole, and there are that's one cut in half with the cream and the Amarena cherries. And then there's the bomboloni, which is a stuffed heavy yeast dough. But it's freaking amazing.
We'll do our very best.
Italians only make the two.
There we go. All right. Donuts, yeah.
Well, they're not. I know. Sorry, Michael, but they're not. They're actually, Wayne. What they are is pâte choux, which is like the little profiteroles or cream puff dough, and it's just piped in a circle, maybe 2 layers. You put it on wax paper and you throw it in a fryer and just lift up the wax. It's really easy.
Awesome.
Yeah, sorry. I saw that and I went,
buzz off, Wayne. Talk food somewhere else.
It's got to be some other kind of donut.
Talking donuts, dang it.
I don't know where he got the patsky. Those are in Italian. That sounds more like Russian.
Well, our guest is here. Are we ready?
Oh, yes. Well, no more donuts. Or ask. Oh, Patsky donuts.
Hello. How are you?
I'm good.
Hi.
How are you? What do you mean no more donuts?
Wayne is distracting me because it's so easy.
Donuts. There we go.
Those are Patsky and they're not Italian. They're Polish. I was close.
Hello. Got more people chiming in. Hello.
Yes, hello. How are you, Preston? It's always good to see you.
I'm doing good. Yeah,
good.
Keeping
You
busy.
Look good. That's good. Look at all those books.
I'll say we can only fit half of your list of books. You're a busy guy for sure. So,
oh my gosh,
there we go. Everybody's excited. Look at that.
No more donuts.
Well,
I can make them for him when we finally meet.
Who
oh
doesn't
my
love donuts?
gosh.
Right? Once in a while. And we know who really loves them, but we won't go there because my friends are all cops. I said it.
Oh, ouch.
I tease them.
Ouch. I agree. More donuts, the better. Well, okay. If we were having a show about donuts, well,
We
how
were
did
not.
you get to talking about donuts is what I'd like to know.
Little-
I don't even recall even making mention. So anyway, welcome
Oh.
back, Preston. Honestly, we just are always so delighted when you're on because we never know where it's going to go, but we always know it's going to go someplace really amazing and positive. And
Always good. Always good.
I know.
Hope so.
I know. So where do we want to start? I mean, you've got all these stories. We sort of talked a little bit and chat about where to go. And I want to leave it to you. And we're just going to kind of follow along because we got a couple of ranting things and we got a couple of, well, actually, let's start with this because you know what? This is all over the news. Well, Facebook news and social media. I'm just going to come in and I'm going to present this because this apparently is a thing, and I'm dying to hear what you have to say about it. 1 second, guys. I'm just going to grab this for a minute. This is supposed to be happening today, by the way.
Oh. No.
I had to. I had to.
That didn't come from TikTok, did it?
It sure did.
How did I know? And I just went on and on about that yesterday at the end of the show.
I know.
Don't believe everything you see.
Preston, what are your thoughts? Time Traveler says aliens will invade Earth and abduct only 8,000 of us. Pick me. I want in on that ride.
8,000. Yeah, that's an interesting number.
Right.
I'm not sure where you get that, but
right.
Okay.
See,
well, I mean, we know it's far more common than that. I mean,
I would think.
But they're only taking 8,000 today.
Dolly, you driving?
Dolly.
I know. Everybody's like, pick us up. Oh my gosh. Anyway, thought I would share that up for a giggle, but oh my word.
I better not cook for them because then they'll take me.
You know what? You're doing this. Anyhow, this is the kind of stuff, like so much stuff floats around out there. What do you do when you see things?
Alex has a ticket.
I'm getting really good at rolling my eyes, I can tell you that.
Be careful, they'll get stuck.
Yeah.
You go on TikTok, your eyes will be stuck.
I mean, the social media, it's a cesspool. I mean, let's face it.
Social media can be the toilet bowl of the internet. You have to know how to navigate it, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's good groups out there. There's good people.
Yep.
But I go through some of the Facebook groups and I'm just looking for a good post, just one to comment on that's, at all intelligent. And they're out there, but like you say, you have to sort of wade through it. I think the worst part for me is the constant CGI UFOs that are, clearly not real.
Right.
They're not even trying.
Right.
Yet they're presented.
Right.
Look what we saw. And all the actors are like, oh my God.
Running for cover, or they're on top of the mountain going, pick me. That would be me. But
yeah, it's unfortunate. It's exhausting, honestly, is what it is for me.
Yeah.
Richard, it has to be. Because you research, authentic stories. You hear people with really enlightening stories, people who are really fearful, people who are really like, what the heck happened to me? I got picked up off the road, or I'm in a drive-in, and all of a sudden.
I'm just so glad that people, are able to find me at some point, because often it's a long search for them. I mean, they're seriously searching for anybody who will take them seriously, or have something, to say beyond,
Right.
There was a lot of sighting pictures when the two planets aligned with the moon, and it stayed for a few days, and all you saw was everybody posting that this was UFO, even though NASA had photographs up. But it's hard because you don't know who to believe anymore.
Yeah.
Unless you've got a telescope and you're looking at it yourself, it's really hard to believe anyone online.
I know who not to believe,
Yeah.
which is basically our governments.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but we've talked about that back and forth. Up,
How
down,
many
sideways.
times have we talked about that? I sent you an article today.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
I have to. I see this stuff, and she said, send it to Preston, see what he's got to say. Because it's no, seriously, it's like people, soldiers who have been, I guess, who were sick because of UFOs. I mean, there's some good parts in there, about the Native Americans and how lost and lonely they felt after the Star People left. But then you have these other, people who allegedly soldiers who have been, sick because of contact or because of seeing these crafts. What were your thoughts on the article?
I'm not a fan.
I know. As soon as I have a thing or two.
I think she knew that before she sent it to you.
And I appreciate that this stuff is getting in the news. That's cool. But as far as these claims of hundreds of soldiers being killed by UFOs,
right?
Okay, if you're going to say that, show us the evidence. Of course,
Right.
they're not, because I don't think there is evidence to support this.
Right.
I've looked into physiological effects. That's kind of been one of my areas of deep diving into research, because that was the subject of my first book, was healings.
Right.
And I put a chapter in there on UFO injuries, and I scoured the literature for them. And there's some there. There's a few absolutely legit cases where people got too close to a landed UFO.
Right.
So if these things are landing on air bases, and I think that does occasionally happen, we've got some good evidence of that, probably don't run up to it because they are very hot. I mean, Dolly talks about this. We talked about that in the book. I've got other cases of that. There are cases in the literature. That article mentioned the Stephen Michalek case in Falcon Lake, Canada, which is probably the go-to case for that, where he was out there in the woods mining. Probably the ETs were in there for the same reason, because they do seem to be attracted to areas of mines and stuff. Speculating there, but it's an interesting connection.
Yes.
And he ran up to it, and it took off. And this is when I did study that case in detail, which was very much covered up by the Canadian government for a long time.
Shocker.
They did not want people talking about it.
Right.
Which I think lends some credibility to it.
Right. Well,
I agree.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah. What's interesting about that case is he was examined by many doctors who pretty much came up with the same diagnosis of some type of radiation sickness. Because not only did he have burns on his chest, which there are photos, there's the very famous photo where it shows the sort of grid pattern. But there are other photos, and he was examined by doctors, and his blood lymphocyte level dropped from about half normal. He was vomiting. He had burns and extreme thirst and a bunch of symptoms that are pretty much identical to radiation sickness.
I was just going to say that. That's really,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a well-verified case. I wonder about it, because it's definitely an unusual UFO to have exhaust coming out in a grid pattern.
Right.
I wonder about that, honestly. Could that have been government?
Had to be.
I tend to lean a lot towards that, only because of the fact that, I've done a lot of research that goes back into ancient history. The ancient people emulated, what they saw. And there's so many amazing stories that you can find where they existed and they welcomed them. Just go to Egypt. I mean, there are tombs that have extraterrestrial beings that are revered the same as a pharaoh. Like everything, like they emulated. They were very warm towards one another. They respected them. When did that change? I say Roswell.
And that's worldwide too. I mean, it's not just one culture.
Exactly.
All across the world.
Exactly. Where did it go from respect and emulation to and coexistence. I mean, the Hopis, I mean, there's upteen tales there, to all of a sudden everything is a threat.
Yeah, late 1960s, 70s, 80s. That's when that narrative started to be put forth, as
Right.
near as I can tell. Because it certainly wasn't like that in the 50s, the contactee era. It
Right.
was all love and light. And,
Right. Well, some people believe it was like in around the Roswell era when things started. Well,
Well, that's when we started getting enormous. I mean, that's when this giant super wave, basically, is what I call it,
Yeah.
swept across the U.S. and the world, really.
Yes.
And it coincides, as you know, with the atomic age.
Yes.
I think what finally happened, because they're watching us, they've been around. We know they've been around throughout the 1800s and 1700s, and all the way back.
Yeah.
Right.
We've got good evidence of this. And yet, 1947 was a game changer. Right when we started exploding nuclear bombs, right when we had the ability to absolutely kill ourselves completely
Decimate
off the
planet. Yeah.
We're like, oh no,
I know.
we have got to show ourselves now. It's game
Yeah.
over. These guys are.
Who let the kids unattended? Yeah.
In the
Gave
airport.
the kids the bomb.
In the airport.
Seriously, I can't see that being a coincidence. And that's when people started getting pulled on board in
Right.
large numbers, and physically examined and healed and like warned. The ETs say the same things to everybody. It's over and over again. It's laughable to me that people are like, oh, they're here to take over. When the ETs say, first, don't be afraid. Second, we won't hurt you. Third, why are you exploding nuclear bombs? Fourth, you're killing each other with your warlike ways, your greed and corruption. Stop polluting the environment. This is pretty much all they're saying.
Right. Well, I mean, let's think about it. And I'd like your take on it. If you're letting off an atomic bomb, and if we have, let's look at it from a dimensional standpoint. If you're in one space, different dimensions, that's got to cause a ripple effect somewhere. Dimensionally speaking, that's got to be a bit concerning.
Yeah, I've heard that from contactees over the years. Like, the ET's saying you are harming places you are not aware of.
Okay.
And then Dolly comes along. I'm like, Dolly, for you.
Yeah, I have a question. Right.
And she's like, you're actually annihilating. When we explode nuclear weapons, it's not just the physical plane it's affecting. It's the higher dimensions.
Right.
So this is what the ETs told her. So
wow.
This is why it's such a big deal.
Right.
I remember there was a case where a guy was pulled on board in Nevada, and they showed him this little map and all these little red dots, and they're like, "This is where all your nuclear bombs are." Every single, and then says, "We know where every one of these are, and we can turn them off if we want." And it's funny because he's just a guy, he's not the head of government or anything that can really do anything, but they keep pulling people on board over and over and over. And I know that they've done this to the heads of government, and the people, they're just like, go away. We don't want it. We're not listening. Blah, 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 don't talk to me. That's why they're doing a grassroots movement. I really think the evidence for that is strong. They're the schoolyard encounters, the drive-in movie theater encounters. Those are really good examples of displays. And the whole injury thing that these governments are putting forth is laughable, because the injuries that are on record, and you can look these up. John Schussler wrote a catalog of some 400 injuries. And I'm like, okay, this has got to be an interesting book. I'm going to get this. He was the head of MUFON, by the way. And I started going through it, and a bunch of them were just simply people who were paralyzed when a UFO, could not move. And then they could. I wouldn't really technically call that an injury. That's a physiological effect, but it's not an injury.
No.
And then he would talk about, some people having little scars. I'm like, well, okay. That could be classified as an injury. Often they'll heal right up. But we leave scars for vaccinations and surgeries that are meant to help people. So the only real injuries that were on there that were, I thought, this is my assessment, valid, were eye sensitivity. There will be people who look at a UFO and it leaves a little burn mark on their retina that lasts a day or two. And there's a number of contactees who do have light sensitivity. That is a thing.
Do they get scars on their cornea that are unexplainable?
A couple of times I did interview one guy, Jim Schaefer, who he woke up one night, after having an encounter with his eyes all swollen. And they took him to the doctor, and the doctor's like, oh, did you look at a welder's arc?
Oh, crap.
No, I didn't, actually. There's a couple of cases like that. He's one I talked to personally.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, that's
just asking for a friend.
People, what is somewhat common, and I've heard this, people will have a real close-up UFO sighting and it causes a headache that might last a day or two or three.
Let's not even go there, Michelle.
Pointing at Amelia.
So,
Headaches every day.
if that's the stress or the magnetic field surrounding it or what have you.
Can I just say something that will tie into this, but is bringing back the military and soldiers when they were speaking? I don't know the numbers, but I do know that there have been many, many Marine soldiers that have witnessed UFOs in the skies while out in the Middle East, but none of them have ever said that they've been abducted or hurt. I mean, if they have, I haven't seen it or read about it, but the majority of them say, yeah, we see them all the time. And it's just really cool. They're actually really relaxed about it. So it does bother me when I hear that they're saying that they're making them sick and everything else. It seems like the government will use anything to make them inferior and make us afraid of them.
They did, by the way, say that there was a healing case. They have a healing case.
Okay.
That's God, really?
Thank God.
Let's talk about that, because they haven't. They had one little tiny sentence in one of their government reports.
Yeah.
We do have at least one healing case. Like, okay.
I bet you there's loads more. I bet you there's loads more. Because the funny thing is, when you work in the field of paranormal and you work with the darkness, that is what you see a lot of with soldiers who come home, is dark entities and the demonic side. I haven't worked with anyone that is having issues because of contact. Not to say it doesn't exist. I'm just saying it's not something with all the cases that we had. It's not something that we've come across.
It's not something that poses a concern, because it's not, there isn't, aggressive.
Yeah, well, I think the concern is when you're a pilot in a fighter jet and your superior says, go towards that craft, and you get really close to it. Yeah, that can be dangerous.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because these things do have, plasma fields surrounding them. They can be very hot.
Right.
And that's your own fault. If you're going to run up to a UFO or fly up right next to it, you're taking a risk.
Right.
And they will avoid you in most cases, I think.
Right.
Do you believe when their commanders send them closer that they're well aware that this isn't government? Or do you think that possibly they're unsure and they're just sending them up there?
I'm wondering about that, because there are some cases where I think our secret governments are flying these things around, and people in these Navy ships, even commanders, are not in the loop. And it's a way of really confusing the issue. This is just based on,
that's what I thought.
the huge number of reports. So I think, sometimes that does. I mean, we can't rule it out, can we?
No, really it just came to mind now, because I didn't even think about, until you mentioned them being sent up to get close to this craft. I never even thought about it. I always thought that it's just by chance that they run into things, or pilots see the most because they're up there, especially commercial pilots. There are so many reports and they have to report everything. But I find it fascinating that they send them up there. Why would you do that? It could knock out your entire system. And I was going to say that, and Dolly wrote it down. Well, it would knock off their entire flight system.
My reply would be the fact that it would create the whole, blend to the false flag thing. Look at, our pilots are being attacked.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much what they're trying to do, I think, is just raise all of these issues, you know, like give us something else to fear because we don't have enough. You know.
It seems to be very carefully orchestrated. In some ways, ways it seems like totally out of control. Because, you know, what was it, 2 months ago? They had one balloon and then another, and we're shooting UFOs down. Look, we've shot down 5 UFOs now.
Right?
And they're probably
not
theirs.
UFOs. They're
Yeah.
not.
They're probably their aircraft.
Yeah.
That is horrible. I think Wayne made a really good point earlier with his comment regarding how the government wants us to always fear them, because with them, we would have our own powers. We would have our own, you know, selves that we're accountable. We don't really need them as much as they make us feel we need them. That's not exactly what he said, but roundabout. And, you know, they want to keep instilling that fear so they can control us. And I do believe that. And I believe it even more with the more often that we have you on the show and I hear from you, because I do have a lot of fear, but you keep me grounded with it. When I talk to you, I feel so much better about it. No, I do. I'm
Nice.
serious. Like,
Yeah.
seriously, Preston,
No,
like
but your
I have never
stories-
felt like this with anyone that I've talked about it with. I've always been so afraid, but with you, I feel safe.
Mhm.
You know,
Your
I trust
stories
you.
are always very positive.
I am-
motivated.
Yeah.
No, I don't edit people's stories that come to me. I really
know.
don't. You know, and there are people who come to me quite fearful.
Mhm.
And we go through their account, and I have published a bunch of books, and the stories that I put in there are not hand-picked. You know, I'm not cherry picking and shoe fitting here. I am
Right.
putting it out there as I receive it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if you go through my books carefully, you'll see there's some people who had a real hard time.
Right.
But the vast majority, well over 80%, 90%, feel like this was an experience that they would not trade. And they're glad it happened. Just recently, I spoke to a guy who's put out a show, Alien Abduction Answers, John Yost.
Oh, excellent.
Which is somewhat, you know, I mean, he had a lot of fear with his experiences. And he fully admitted that, but said that he's actually moving past the fear now, and he's really much more curious. And what did he
It
say?
ends
His
up that
curiosity
way.
has overcome his fear. I'm like, yeah,
Right.
this is
Right.
he's getting there. He's not quite there yet, but he's following that same pattern I see with people.
Right.
It can be so scary.
I attest to it.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people. You know, like I started having memories from childhood and realized, you know, a lot of the experiences I had weren't paranormal. They were extraterrestrial. And even into like adulthood, I'm like, Bubbles, this shit can't be happening, you know. But as we started, you know, exploring it, and the more I explored it, more and more experiences were happening to me right within my home. It was just happening. Like, I mean, like this in the last few months or a couple of years, and I became more and more relaxed with it. And it's, you know, even talking with Dolly, she goes, "No, like if you don't want it, just say, no, I'm not into this right now." And I've just seen myself going from touch me and I'll break your arm to I'm just really not in the mood.
I was there for the I'll break your
I have a
arm
headache,
thing.
I'm not in the
Bubbles, what do
mood.
you see?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I know.
I don't want to look.
Yeah. I'm
That's
just
the
having a
hardest
headache.
part.
Not
The
in the
beginning
mood.
is really hard. People don't like it when a gray shows up in their bedroom. I get
Try
it.
remote doing that stuff.
And I had Gray right beside me, you know, and I just rolled over and went, nope. Like no. But it's like, but I didn't freak out. Whereas I would have at one point, like, what the, you know, like, and I don't freak out over things, but it is intrusive. It's very intrusive when they just randomly show up when you're supposed to be in your safe space.
Right. Yep. This is the crux of it for people. Like,
Yeah.
and there are people who just feel it's a violation, period.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a good example is a lady I interviewed, Pat Brown is her name, really nice lady, who actually asked for the experience. She went to a channeler in Sedona and who claimed to be channeling Greys, right? And she's like, I want to go on your ship. And they said, okay, we will arrange it through the channeler, right? And she goes back to her home in Pacoima, I think it was, Arleta. This is right side of LA, and in
Right.
come the Greys through the wall. Pull her on board, and she's fighting them all the way. And they're like,
Yeah,
boy,
that's way
she's different
forthkind.
tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was not a happy camper, but
And you asked for it. That's
Be careful what you wish for.
Well, I did, like I basically, when I was ready, I just telepathically put it out there, said, okay, I'm ready. And heck, within no time at all, big blast of light comes flying through the room. It's like, I'm awake,
Oh,
and,
crap.
and I never, I never look back. So it brings me, I suppose, to the next question. Michael Carter, your friend Michael Carter's on the show.
Sure.
He's so much
a
fun.
week ago. Yeah, and he made a point of a remark when he said, the CE5 movement. He goes, it can be great experience. He goes, but what happens if you end up with an encounter that goes wrong? What if you end up with a race that's maybe not so friendly?
I don't. Well, let me answer it this way, okay? I just talked to a guy from Europe, and it's finalizing his chapter for my next book.
Right.
He's like, I really need to make a point about CE5 work. I'm like, okay.
Right.
He says, there's a danger here that people are not considering. That when you reach out and do CE5 work, you might be contacting not ETs, but government, and they can come down.
I never thought about that.
Because they do have psychotronics. They can mimic telepathy. They can put a ray on you that causes intense fear. They can do all the things that you might easily mistake for ET.
Wow. Unless
So
you're
flashing your little lights.
So, before you decide to pay for that CE5 experience on a mountaintop with certain someone.
Yeah, but your chances of, I don't know how to put this any more clearly, but ETs are not here to hurt us. They're just not.
Right.
And I know people do have very scary experiences. And there are some people who are going to disagree with me. That's all right. I understand that, but I don't know how many people I have to interview before I have not found one white crow yet. They're all black, so to speak.
Right.
I just don't have the cases of torture.
Thank God.
I don't have them.
Okay.
Right.
No, I'm glad.
Right.
But CE5, so proceed with caution or don't do it?
Well, I think it's okay to do. But I think if TR3B shows up, or a big rectangular craft that is, because generally ETs don't fly the triangle TR3Bs with the and the rectangular. That I would be concerned. I would be worried, and I think the best way to tell is if it's negative.
I never thought
for me,
about
it was
that.
honestly a flash of light. It hit the wall. It bounced out. I'm like, that was the end of it. That was the experience.
That was real, though. You weren't looking for it. It came to you.
Well, yeah, weeks later.
One of my best CE5s, I was actually, I'm normally just a kind of a wallflower. I'll sit there and you can head the group. I'll just sit there and watch. They're like, no, you had the group. You had the meditation. I'm like, oh, I don't want to. But they're like, no.
I don't want to. That'd be me. No.
So I did. And we're all meditating.
Right.
Which is always fun. I like to meditate. And this was in Topanga Canyon. Turned out, there were CE5 groups doing this across the U.S. on this day.
Right.
So it was kind of a world thing, right?
Right.
At any rate, I'm sitting there meditating, and there's, 6 of us there. It was a small group. And I got this message, like, look up. I'm like, that's just me thinking. And it's look up. I'm like, oh, God, this is annoying. So finally, I looked up, because I'm meditating. I don't want to stop my meditation.
Right.
And I looked up and boom, this little tiny bright light, really bright, starts expanding and gets huge until it's covering a good portion of the sky and then winks out. I mean, I don't want to over exaggerate, but it was covering a third of the sky, half.
Oh,
I mean, it was huge. This could not be a shooting star. It
No,
started at a
it's
tiny
the size
funny.
of a small
You know what it
town.
looked like to me? It was like someone pouring milk on a glass table, and you're under it, and
Oh,
just
that's
watching it spread out.
crazy.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yes.
And it winked
There,
out, and I looked at everyone. I'm like, oh
Anybody
shoot,
else see this, or is it just me? Yeah.
just me.
Right.
And it was kind of
there's
embarrassing. I'm like, guys, guess what? I
Wow.
saw something, but I did get
Yeah.
confirmation in a really cool way, because this was during a wave of sightings in this area. This was like 1994.
Wow.
I was putting up
So
flyers, and
before the whole movement, basically.
yeah. But at any rate, I got a call from someone who was in that area at that time, and they saw a craft. Well, two of them driving through the canyon. They were 2 miles away, 3 miles away.
Right.
They saw an honest to God craft. It stopped, went outside as they can do. And this is one of the ways I know, because craft will go assume a vertical position, and flashed all their lights out. Boom, boom, boom. He said there must have been 50 lights in the bottom of this thing.
Wow.
And they can
Wow.
pull, these lights flash out of anywhere. So it's not like it has a light bulb and it's flashing out like
Right.
some of the government stuff does. They
Right.
can flash a light from any point on their craft. And that's
Wow.
what it did.
Yeah.
that's why
Yes.
Lisa Savoy was in our chat room earlier. If you're there, Lisa, give us a little heads up. Like, just let me know. She has fear because she said her experiences haven't been positive. So I'm wondering if she's not having the ET experiences, but the MyLab kind of, there she is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have been seeing a tall gray wearing a black hooded cloak in my room lately, and I'm wide awake. I've never heard a black hooded cloak.
Oh, I have.
Have you?
Oh, yeah.
I haven't.
Yeah, they wear cloaks, capes even. I've got a number of cases involving she's wearing capes.
Capes. Yeah.
That's cute. Yeah.
But would that be military?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
When someone is having experiences, the first thing I would tell them is write it down. This can be very therapeutic and will help keep things straight. And really take a good, hard look at what is actually happening to you. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Have you been hurt in any way? And in what way?
Yeah. She's still there. Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Lisa's got a book out about her experiences, actually. She's gone through hypnosis. She's been on the show before as well to talk about the book. I think, hypnosis definitely, I think, helped her. I mean, she could remember detail by detail. But I mean, that's something you have to be prepared for. I think not everybody wants to open that door. I mean, not all experiences are extraterrestrial.
Yeah. Oh, I know it. That's why I got involved in the paranormal. And I did investigate some really dark hauntings. And I've talked to people who've used Ouija boards and regretted it. There was one lady who did table tipping, which was really cool.
Oh, I could do that. Table tipping's fun. Yeah, I can
it was
do
really
that.
cool. But she ended up having an unexplained fire in her house. Cooking noise was following her around. I drove away from her house one day after doing this, and something hit my car and pushed me off the road. I nearly lost control.
Right.
And I told people about, oh, you probably hit some oil on the road. I'm like, no, I didn't. I know exactly where it happened. I was watching the road. Something hit my car. I don't know how else to put it.
Yes.
I think it was related to that, because there's a little bit of fallout sometimes when you do these things. She took all the precautions, filling it with white light and meditation.
That's really hard. I mean, sometimes I feel if you don't put the intention in there, like the demonic realm, they just don't abide by it. I don't think they fear certain things. You can go around and burn sage, you can go around, say prayers, you can do all that, but you have to really put power behind the words, and you really have to have strong intention and belief. Otherwise, you're just going through the motions. And I know this because I spent 2 decades working with people in those situations. And like, well, I did this and did this, but did you mean it?
Yeah. And one other thing
it's a big deal.
People need to realize is here we are, like on the third plane, right? And here's the astral plane. Well, this is the lower astral plane. This is where all the people go. When you die and you don't know you're dead, or if you're a drug addict or a murderer or a horrible, horrible person. You go funk, and you're right up there, hovering
That's
right
right.
above the third plane, and just waiting for.
That's
anyone.
right. You're still kicking around, bad person. Whether it doesn't matter what side of the ether you're on, if you're stuck, you're still going to be the same person.
Because most people, when they pass on, they'll go up to a higher
Yes.
realm, what you might call the heavenly realms.
Yes.
But I've explored some of these lower realms out of body, and it's nasty.
It is.
It's
But
bad.
I think that's what scares people, from having those out of body experiences. They can't get past the first realm of all of these beings.
Yeah, I never even considered it really as a possibility, because when I first started doing it, I just I'd pop out into this bright place of light and love. I'm like, wow, this is great.
Yeah, not so much.
But I started reading about other people's. I'm like, well, I'm gonna see if I can find this, and I did. Took some effort.
But why?
I was curious.
I'm curious. You're such an enlightened soul. It's hard to want to go down into the pits and see.
I had
what's
one
going
recently. It was crazy. I just, I went out of body, and I'm searching around, kind of like, I'm not sure I should be in these lower realms, but I'm doing it. This guy comes up to me. He's very flattering. He's like, "Oh, you're so great. You're pretty well known, aren't you?" And just start flattering me. And I'm looking at him.
Yeah, careful.
Not right about this guy.
Yeah.
And his face transforms into an honest to God, ugly devil face.
Right.
With the full-on
horns and everything.
Animalistic features, I guess would be the way of putting it.
Well, those are the ones that know everything about you.
And I'm like, stay away, and you don't bother me, and love is the force. Boy, that pissed them off.
Yeah.
They started snarling.
Yeah.
And surrounding me. I'm like, wow, this is intense.
Right.
You're not going to get anything from me but love. That's what I'm thinking. And that made me even angry. I'm like, they're too angry at this point. I'm leaving.
Yeah, there's nothing like the sound of a demon saying your name for the first time.
I've got recordings of it.
It's like you just kind of shudder, and you have to compose yourself because you can't drop. You have to stand your ground, and it's just, it sends chills down your spine. It's horrible.
It's scary. I mean,
yeah.
But you know what? Again, I'm a big believer in mindset. I've had things growling at me through recordings, or just like and calling every name in the book. I'm like, I know. Sorry you're having a bad day. People go, well, it's a little bit pompous. I'm like, no, it's just me keeping a positive mindset. I know, love and light. And I don't get followed home.
I have.
Fear is a real problem. I mean, this applies to the UFO experience. Because if you're in complete fear, it's not a pleasant experience.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. You could feel it. But I always say, and I remember my grandfather saying, because of the fact that, there were so many mediums in our family, and he always said from a young age, he goes, you can feel it, but don't show it. Always just be positive, just be firm, just, whatever it is. I'm not the only one who behaves like that, in investigations, but I'm sure not going to give it to him. I'm just not.
No, demonic spirits are known for feeding off fear.
Exactly.
They were like, "Yay, we got one!"
I know it's true.
Well, they need to fish. They need to. That's how they survive. And people don't realize that by engaging, you're keeping them alive and you're keeping them present. We had this conversation about all these paranormal TikTok videos, and I won't go back into it, except to say that a location can only stay haunted if it's continuously investigated and continuously fed. Eventually, if there is nothing there other than a curse or something grounded, it will go away because it can't survive. So if you have a famous haunted building, it's going to stay haunted as long as you keep going in there.
Positive mindset, positive vibes. That's how you can do it.
Can you imagine? You finally tell them it's 2022, and they're like, "What?"
I know it's true.
2023 now. I can't keep up.
It's true.
Yeah.
I
like that. I thought it was 1600. Nope. You've been here a while.
One century rolls into the next.
Well, it's like, why do some people have experiences when they purchase haunted houses and other families don't.
Yeah.
Comes to mindset and belief system too. Yeah.
Mindset.
So
Mindset is big.
it's very, I mean, we saw that with Amityville where the family came in and said, we haven't had, but if they're even being honest, because I don't think so. But anyways, there are families that have gone in and lived in places after something tragic and nothing's happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Shout out to Martin. Hi, Martin. I know who he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, hypnosis is a good tool. I think if someone does, if they're ready for it,
the first
but you have to realize, that this is something that is going to bring stuff forth. The problem is when someone has contact and it's fearful, they will have missing time, and then they have to deal with that fear, and it will come at you hard. So that is a big step for someone to go through that. And I really commend people who have that courage. You have to get through, like, oh my God, I'm here. I'm on a craft. I'm undressed. What's that needle? Look at the size of that needle. It's coming towards me. This is bad. I don't like this. Stop.
But then I have to ask you, is that my lab or is that
not necessarily my lab?
Extraterrestrial? Really?
Well, then I can see why people are saying it's horrific. I wouldn't want a needle either.
Yeah. I mean, they do the same things that we do, surgically speaking.
Right.
I discovered this with the cancer cure cases. There are 30 of them. And I talked to some people personally, and they're like, oh, gosh, it was painful. It hurt. And the ET warned them. They said, this is actually going to hurt, just so you know. And, one lady... So
they're like, don't knock you out? What is that? Even we do that.
One guy I talked to in England, he's still like, I don't like these guys. Because they did. They took a needle and put it in his head.
Okay, see?
Okay,
like, they don't care about anesthesia. He keeps telling me that. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm really sorry that happened to you. Are you okay? He's like, well, yeah, I'm okay. Have you gotten anything good out of this? He's like, well, I can go out of body at will. And I have an enormous number of psychic experiences. Do you think that's related to these experiences? He's like, yeah, I really do. Right. I really think they are. I'm like, well, that's something good.
But there's a lot of reports of people coming back gifted, right?
Yeah, it's the rule rather than the exception. So it's the exam. That hurts the worst, and that's where the healing is. That's the checkup. I don't like going to the doctor myself. I mean, who does?
I was gonna say there's painful medical exams. Like Dolly said, medical exams can be stressful. That's here as well.
Yeah, and if you're in fear, and you've hypnotized yourself, because basically that's when you're in a strong emotional state, you are very narrowly focused. And if someone comes at you with their finger and you think it's a needle, it's gonna make you bleed. I mean, they burned people with ice cubes under hypnosis. This is a flame. It was an ice cube. And they blistered. So this is partly what's going on in some cases. I'm not going to put a blanket explanation for anything.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But what happens is when people go under hypnosis and then boom, they're thrashing and freaking out and they have to go through this. And then they get through it. And then they start to realize, okay, they're letting me off the table now. Oh my gosh. They're taking me to the engine room. And then, oh my God, look, they're taking me to the observation deck. I see Earth. Look, that looks like Earth far below me.
Right.
One lady said,
flat?
I felt like I was going to crap and puke at the same time. She's got fear of heights. She was so funny.
Yeah.
And it was hard for her. She found herself once on board a UFO, and she's sitting down on one of these little tiny benches that are not really made for humans. And she's like kind of nervous, and she's waiting there. And these little grays come in, and they walk right over to her and sit right next to her. And she's, how dare you? This whole room is empty. This is my seat. You could sit anywhere. And they looked at her and said, no, well, you're actually sitting in our seat. This is our place.
Oh, burn. Yeah. Wow.
But she ended up, thinking that this was absolutely positive. It starts out pretty scary.
Considering, yeah.
So ETs abduct Karens too, huh? I had to get that one in there.
They have none.
They take them and they spit them back out as soon as they open their mouths. They're like, nope.
Someone told me, they would never heal an old person because old people have no use for you. And then I started citing, the 10 or 20 cases right off the bat that I know of involving really old people. And one lady from England had hepatitis. She's, in her golden years. They cured her, and her family had to believe her because, it was chronic jaundice.
Yeah.
And they healed her. Why would they do that? Just some sweet old lady.
Right.
It's not, altruistic.
Yeah.
Not everyone feels this way. There's one lady from California who had a gallstone. She's a nurse or in the medical field. And they were going to remove her entire gallbladder because they kind of have to with a stone that size. And someone came in to her house uninvited and removed her gallstone, but left her gallbladder. And she was still pissed. She's like, though they cured me, I'm really nervous about the fact that someone came in and did this, and I didn't ask for it.
I'd be okay if they take mine. Go right ahead, take the gallstone. That's painful.
To me is she's in the medical field, and I'm like, yep, there's another nurse being healed, another doctor, another healer.
Yeah.
They heal healers. They heal people who are doing good work.
Right. See, that says a lot.
Nasty.
Yeah, I'm just going to put up another comment. Okay.
Yes. Martin Rivera says the quantum healing hypnosis bypasses all emotions and gets to the core of the experience and is revealing that everything was for the person benefit, checking the person's body and had some healing.
Yeah, that's hypnosis.
My sister had healing in a client too. Awesome.
Yeah.
I don't think that they want to see us in pain.
Precisely, they don't. ETs apologized to Betty Hill, like, "Oh, we're so sorry." When they stuck that needle in her navel, and they're like, "You're hurting me." They quickly put their hand on her head, and afterwards, like, "We're sorry. That caused you pain."
I'm okay if they take the pain away.
Yeah, I would love.
I have a high threshold, but come on, man! Like the side of my head, that would freak me out.
But I do believe when you say that they do look out for healers and people who do a lot of light work or planetary energy work. Things I think for the good of fellow man, for the good of the planet, because I've just seen examples. I've seen examples of that people who have had like contact that might do all that stuff. And so far,
I've never interviewed a murderer who's been healed, but I don't know many murderers.
Wow.
I did interview a guy who was in prison and was taken from his cell in Canada. And I'm like, well, what did you do? And he was, why are you in prison? He says, well, basically it was because of marijuana use back then when it was illegal.
Right.
He was jailed for it.
Right.
ETs took him right out of his cell and put him back. I thought that was kind of, I'm like, would have been nice if you just broke him out.
We have barely any of them in there, so give us a break. I'm kidding. We have to make it look good, put a few of them behind bars because we know our system is flawed.
But I do want to comment on what Martin Rivera said earlier about bypassing emotion. See, because hypnosis done correctly does not lead you into pure terror. And done correctly, it allows you to report objectively on your experience, and you can process all that emotion as you're ready.
Okay.
One guy I talked to, his story is coming up in my next book. Really neat guy. His name is Robert. He woke up one day, 7 years old, could not sleep anymore. Had to check for burglars. Was afraid of intruders.
Yeah.
And just couldn't sleep from age 7 onward until he's like 20 something years old. And his mom's like, I'm going to go to the hypnotist to stop smoking. Maybe you could go to get your insomnia cured.
Right.
He's like, no, I don't trust hypnosis. She's like, no, this lady is for real. She's good. She's credentialed. She's in magazines. And she vetted the hypnotist. I forget her name, but it might come to me. At any rate, she's like, I'm going and I'll pay for you. He's like, oh, okay. Because she worked him, right? Like, you're going. You need to find a way to sleep. And so she goes into the hypnosis room and he can hear her crying her eyes out through the walls. He's like, oh no, what's going on? She comes out all teary-eyed and
I'm not going in there. Yeah.
what's going on? She's
Yeah.
like, I'm fine. And he turns to the hypnotist, like, what did you do to my mom? She's like, she's fine. Come in. I want to talk to you. And she's like, what's the problem? He's like, I just can't sleep. Like, are your parents abusive? Did anything happen? And he's like, no, not that I can think of. I just can't sleep. One day I couldn't sleep and I'm afraid of intruders and I have to check the house. So okay, let's go under hypnosis. So she basically just relaxes him because that's what hypnosis essentially is.
Right.
And she says, okay, now that you're fully relaxed, can you think of any reason why you can't sleep? And he started seeing flashes of light and grays leaning over him. And then boom, all the walls of amnesia just crumbled. And he remembered this full onboard experience where he was taken with his mom. And they were both pulled on board and he was examined. They were working with his stomach. It turned out he did later have some stomach issues. Thinks they were working on that or examining that.
Oh, okay.
But he came back out of hypnosis and he attacked that hypnotist. He's like, you put this in me. You made this up. You made me believe that I've been abducted by aliens. And she's like, listen, I didn't do a thing. I didn't say a word. Here's the tape. You listen to it. All I said was, what made you have insomnia? And he listened to the tape and he apologized profusely because she didn't lead him. She did it right, but he had a lot of fear.
They just blocked it all out then. Or do you think they blocked it out?
I think probably he did, and maybe they helped him because they don't want to cause fear, and they will facilitate that.
Right.
So it's kind of a two-way street there. And I'm like, well, can you sleep now? And he's like, well, no, not really. He's still having trouble with that.
Oh, well, I could see that completely. I had that kind of experience.
And he had a hard time. This was a scary experience for him. I'm like, well, did you wish this never happened? And he's like, well, no, I can't say that because I think they actually healed me. So they later had some stomach problems, and I think that they were aware of it. And it could have been worse because they were doing something. I'm like, really? Did you get anything good out of these experiences? He's like, well, don't like to talk about this, but I have dreams that come true daily. And he proved it. He would have sealed envelopes. He says, okay, this is going to happen to my daughter, my son. He saved his daughter's life. He says, are you working on cars today? She's a mechanic. And she's like, yeah, we're replacing a transmission. He's like, don't go under the car. I do not want you working on any cars today. She's like, Dad, shut up. I'm going to be fine. But she goes to work on the car, goes under the car. It's all jacked up. And remembers her father's warning. So she quickly gets out and she warns us because there were a couple of people working on the car. It's like, everyone get out from under the car. Crash. The jack broke. It slipped. And the car smashed to the floor. She would have died.
Oh, yeah.
It would have crushed her.
Absolutely.
It's happened to many mechanics.
Yeah.
Right.
He has several stories, which I talked to his mother too. What's interesting about his case is he was taken at age 7, and I'm talking to his mom, and she's like, well, I had an experience at age 7. I saw this thing in the barn. I was 7 years old. And he has a daughter, he had a daughter who at age 7 came running and says, Daddy, that's the thing that came into my room. She pointed to the TV. He was watching a show about grays. Well, that daughter who, had an experience at age 7 like he did, is now fully grown and has a 7-year-old daughter.
Oh.
And she called him up. His daughter called him up and says, I want you to talk to your granddaughter. She says these bald monkeys are staring into the window and coming into her room. So glad for this because she has someone to talk to who understands and a support system and is going to believe her.
Yeah. And she won't have to suffer the insomniac years that he had.
That's 4 generations at age 7.
Yeah.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. What is
probably
it about
more that haven't spoken?
The age. Yeah. That's
I
interesting.
thought that was really interesting. He's like, no, I wouldn't trade. I'm glad for the experiences, even though it's been real hard at times. But very interesting. Yeah, he took his daughter to the doctor
Yeah.
This is really interesting. He took her to the dentist, actually, and the dentist is like, well, you said on the forms she has no surgery.
Right.
He says, she doesn't. He says, well, what's this thing in her sinus? And they showed him the x-ray. He's like, I don't know what it is. What is that? He says, I don't know. And he wouldn't talk about it and basically dismissed them. So he went to another doctor, and the doctor says, I'm not talking about that. I don't know what to tell you. Just leave it there. And he went to 4 doctors before he finally found a doctor who's like, okay, I want you to come to my office and shut the door. And he pulled open the desk drawer, pulled out a document and laid it in front of him and says, if you tell anyone I showed you this, I will deny it. And it was a document from the federal government which stated, if you find, this is to the doctor, if you find any implant that is questionable, that is, not inexplicable, you are not to remove it. And if you do, you could lose your license and you will be fined.
Wow.
You are not to take any action with it.
And
the guy was like, is this for real? Because he says it looked absolutely real.
Yeah, that's scary.
And the doctor said, all doctors get these. I'm like, ooh, wow, because that's the first I'd heard of that. But
there are doctors out there who will remove them.
Yeah, but another guy I talked to, he had the same darn runaround. They changed his medical records. They showed him his x-ray and had this thing in his arm.
Right.
And like, I want to get that x-ray. And they gave him the x-ray, and it was not the same x-ray. It had been altered.
I'm not surprised at that at all. I guess Tamara's looking to see if chronic insomnia is connected to visitation.
Yeah, it's one of the questions I ask. It is, I should say can be. Not everyone has insomnia necessarily, but it's an interesting question, because that is something I ask. And some people do have trouble sleeping, but some people don't need near the sleep. That guy in England I mentioned, like, I have never needed more than 3 hours of sleep a night. I just don't. Dolly says the same thing.
I can do that easily. I probably could have had 10 kids close together.
But I don't like it. I like my sleep, but I can survive on very little.
Yeah, there's something to that. So I think in some ways people who have contact have a different physiology that's been empowered or something, or enhanced.
Sorry, Bubbles.
There's something going on.
Oh no, it's okay. I'm medicated, so I sleep 6 hours. So
yeah.
Because
I'm
I don't
on
think
the
it's healthy.
or contact end of it right there, because Bubbles is in denial.
I always took it because I'm very fortunate that my physician, who is now retired, understood and never questioned me about my abilities, and that I hear a lot of noise and voices at night because everything is quiet. And I was fortunate that he understood the pain that I was in. You can only do it for so long, and it starts to accumulate, and you start to get really tired and really, really careless.
Yeah, contactees are very light sleepers.
Yeah.
I swear I'll hear a cricket walking across the floor. I will. I'm like, oh, what's that noise?
Yes.
I can hear my neighbors a couple hundred feet away from me, and I can hear when they open and close the door. It's just crazy.
We have a question.
Yes, Michael Kennedy. Hi, Michael. Can Preston shed some insight on the new understanding that the future affects the past? That is, time travel is possible. The math has been proposed recently that shows time is all connected constantly.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, because we live in the present moment, right? But the present moment is fleeting, because you can't grasp it. There's basically the past is smack up against the future. Here we are stuck in between the two of them. And yet people are having precognition. Right. How do you explain that? How do you explain the fact that there's people who live their lives ruled by the past and fearing the future? I mean, they're not even in the present moment. But you look at people who work real hard on self-work and awareness, and they start to expand the present moment to a degree where they can perceive the future. I mean, these are full-on psychics.
Right.
So this time is not what we think it is. It's as near as I can tell. And got great insight into this from having out-of-body experiences. Because time is different when you're out of body. It's different. It does not pass the same way. It's hard to describe. And you can see the future and you can visit the past. So I think time, the way we perceive it, is a product of the physical plane, the third dimension. We perceive it very sequentially, very much in a line. As far as time travel being possible, I think if you're advanced enough, I talked about this in Dolly's book. The ETs can do things to time that we don't even understand.
Right.
Pull you out of the time stream. Is that time travel? I think it could be perceived that way.
I agree.
I mean,
Yeah, I could see that.
contactees, I hear this all the time. I'm taken out, I have a 2-hour-long experience, and I'm put back seconds later. That's time travel.
Missing time, that sort of thing.
Yeah, one guy, Kevin Cameron, they took him from a Navy ship, and they showed him all these future events. He says Preston was like looking outside of a window. This was like a movie. It was real life. I was seeing these things. I don't know if I would call that time travel or glimpsing or a telescope to the future. Dolly talked about how they can do that, but they don't.
Right.
There's the whole grandfather complex. You go back and kill your grandfather, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
You wink out of existence.
Well, everything happens for a reason, the ripple effect. But remote viewers can see back and forwards as well.
Yeah.
So there's got to be something to that. Pardon?
Time is not what we think it is. It really isn't.
No.
But
The whole deja vu thing freaks me out.
Yeah.
Because I lose my breath when it happens. Like I literally lose my breath where I have to catch my breath. If I'm standing, I'll have to sit down at times. It's that strong.
My sister had it really bad one day, and she was so upset. She's like, I know everything that's going to happen. I just knew that. She was absolutely freaking out.
Yeah.
My little sister Valerie. Like, it's okay, calm down. You're going to get through this.
Oh my gosh, Valerie. I love her name. Yeah.
Yeah. In past lives and future lives, that's an interesting thing too, because there's there's a theory that it's all simultaneous. This is all going on all at once. I don't know.
That's a tough one.
I wish I could speak to it with more authority.
Yeah.
I don't think that we have the ability to do time travel yet.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
it's humans.
I think I told a story one time about, I was just testing this piece of equipment and ended up with 2 pilots, and they sounded, when they spoke, like they almost sounded like a 50s movie. So I have to put it in around wartime, maybe, because they were in a plane. You could hear the propellers and they were talking, and they were just lost. But they were very, very, they were interactive because they were describing like what was going on in the room I was in, those of us that were there, and they're just saying, oh, look, it's a man, there's a woman, they have electricity. And then they're saying, oh my God, there's a door. I'm like, do not come through the door. I just have visions of this plane kind of barreling through my house or something. But I asked who they were, and it came out, and they went, Major so-and-so, ma'am, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, coordinates. I said, rank and position, coordinates. Because I knew I could tell they were military just by the way they were speaking. And they gave coordinates. The last one we couldn't make out. And they put them over the Pacific somewhere. And I'm like, what do you see? And they said, we're lost. We don't know. It's all black. It's all dark. And then they cut off like that. And we tried the following year to try the exact same time, the same, like literally the same date, the same time, maybe just the way the planets were lined up or something. Like, I don't know. Are we dimensional? Are we dealing with someone lost someplace that they're just, are they dead? Are they alive?
Really interesting paranormal cases like that. There was one case where some ladies basically walked into ancient France or something like that and walked out. And, people will see like a building and they go look for it. It's not there. They're like, oh, I saw this building. And then they go back and study the history of that place. And there was a building there that was exactly like they saw.
Just right the way it is,
So what is going on there? This is one of the
crazy
things with ghosts, because people are there different types of ghosts? Well, yeah. I mean, there's spirits
Yeah.
who are coming down and going. There's ghosts who are earthbound.
Bleed-throughs.
There's
Dimensional bleed-throughs.
echoes.
Yeah.
There's sort of this replay hauntings. I forget the residual hauntings is what they
Residual
call
hauntings. Yeah. Yeah.
which is not a spirit necessarily.
No, it's just a replay in
Energy.
time. It just goes over and over and over. Okay, Dolly.
Oh, ask Preston about seeing
Dinosaurs.
dinosaurs out of body experience. They saw him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Want to
Yeah,
tell
that
that one?
Thanks, Dolly.
Yeah, thanks, Dolly. We appreciate it.
I'm actually going to be putting out another book on OBEs because
Right.
the first one I wrote was all the way up to 2001.
Yeah.
And man, oh man, I've been having some really good ones.
Right.
You know, I've shared some with Dolly, because one day I went looking for her and she saw me. I couldn't believe it. She was in the body and I was out, but she turned around and looked right at me. No one had ever been able to do that. I walk around like a ghost, and it's infuriating. It's very spooky when you're in front of someone and they can't see you.
Yeah.
And then she did it to me, and then we had some shared OBEs.
Right. Very cool.
And she took me out to the Kuiper Belt once. I'm like, oh my God, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It was just asteroids, and there was one that wasn't an asteroid. It was not. It was artificial. And I asked her about that. And I'm like, what was that? She's like, well, what do you think it was? I'm like, well, it wasn't, an asteroid. That was artificial.
If I knew. Yeah.
But she took me back in time, and we saw giants, and it freaked me out because I'd been interested in giants on Earth, and had been studying them from an armchair perspective. Reading the books and articles from the 18 and 1900s. And there's a lot of them. I mean, the evidence for giants is far more persuasive than the mainstream public realizes. That they are real.
Yeah. Oh yes.
I'm absolutely convinced. And we land in this place, and there's giants. I think there were like 4 or 5 of them. They were all men, and they're very much. I looked through the internet trying to find a picture that looked like what I saw. It took a while, but I found one.
Right.
Because they're big. They were, I would say, about 3 times my height. So 15 feet tall, easy. Probably somewhere between 15 and 20, not quite 20.
I'll have to
I would
send
say
you a
16,
picture.
17, thereabouts. And barrel chested and big ruddy features, and did have metal on their arms, bracelets, I guess, or gauntlets, you might call them, and some chest plates, if I remember correctly, and big beards. They look like Vikings, big reddish hair.
Right.
And I'm looking at them going, wow. And one looks right at me. And I'm like, whoa. And it comes and it tries to attack me.
Oh.
And I'm like, whoa,
That's
what
frightening.
the heck? And of course I dart away. Dolly jumps in front. I'm like, Dolly, what are you doing?
Wow, a ginger giant.
I'm trying to find a picture of a giant. Well, it's
a ginger giant. That's a
wonderful.
first for me. Were you in Scotland?
I'm going to share this up. One second. No, go back,
but it was in a cave-like setting.
No. It's not what I want.
These were not nice guys.
Oh, wow. See, people are afraid of ETs.
Do you think
they could work metal? I mean, that was they had weapons, I think. But the thing that freaked me out was, they perceived me. I'm like, Dolly, how the hell can they see us?
Okay.
She said
We're going back
Babylon.
in time. And she says, well, they're psychic. They had psychic abilities. They can see you. You are astrally appearing in their presence.
I think Chris Phoenix says Native Americans talk about red hair giants. I've never heard anyone specifically say what color hair.
That's
Okay,
not
guys.
what it looked like.
Okay. I will scroll the best I can because I can't see the soundboard and at the same time. But this is one that is allegedly you look at these are supposed to be literally in the last 150 years, 100-year-old film. Anything like that?
No.
It's 14 bloody
Said
feet.
they look more like Vikings.
I mean, that was about the size of it. Yeah. That one in the center with the loincloth is a little bit bigger.
Right? Yeah.
than the one I saw, and much bigger than Robert Wadlow. I think that's who that is, the tallest guy in the world.
Yeah, like I look at things like this, and I mean, this is fairly modern on the grand scheme of time, let's say in the last 100 years, but I can completely believe that you would have seen them moving around. I mean, they're finding stuff like this
Yeah, well,
all
there's
the
the
time.
very famous case of the Kandahar giant.
Yes.
Gosh, where
Yes.
was that? Somewhere in Russia or something?
Yes.
I forget
It's
where it was.
huge.
But it's well verified.
Yeah.
A
Oh,
lot of people saw
absolutely.
this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
So
killed him 4
I
times.
love it. I just think you know, I think it's amazing to be able to travel around, and it makes me lean towards a theory that we do travel apparently when we sleep, and we go to, you know, all kinds of places. We don't just sit there and just stay dormant. It's like parking the car in the garage and sleeping in it, you know. I can't see that. Wayne was terrified of dinosaurs as a child.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yep.
seeing
That's a
dinosaurs
past
with
life,
visions.
Wayne.
I know. It's just like,
If you're
God.
waking up with bruises and stuff, because that's reliving trauma.
Yeah.
That was
Wow.
probably a real event. I'm
Wow,
purely
really
speculating, but
interesting.
that fits that pattern.
Oh, wow. At age
Like,
4, it was terrifying and freaked out my babysitter.
at age 4, Wayne was at his own birthday party, threw up everywhere, and went, "Oh my God, I'm back." Who does that at 4? So the poor guy has definitely been traumatized. I'm back. Who put me here?
Oh my gosh.
He did. I know.
That's bizarre.
I know. It's it's pretty frightening, you know.
Yeah.
Poor guy. So,
Definitely.
Yeah, red hair, 2 rows of teeth and 6 fingers.
which is the common, you know, the common
There are
thing
people who are
that
born
people
today
see.
with 6 fingers, so
Yep.
probably have like them to do their DNA and see how far back it goes.
2 rows
Can
of
you
teeth.
imagine?
That's frightening. And you know what's strange is that there's an
That's
area
happened
up
as
near
well.
Lake Huron on the Canadian side, and I remember hearing stories of people who lived there who had like 2 rows of teeth.
It's
Not
amazing.
giants, but
Yeah, my friend's father had 3 sets of teeth. His adult teeth all fell out, and then
okay,
third set came in.
right.
Not quite the same thing, but still interesting.
They
Right.
say that when that happens, you have like an overabundance of calcium or something, and that's why. But that
Maybe.
doesn't make any sense, because when you're born, your teeth are all up here, like they're all in the jaw that come forward. So it doesn't make any sense.
Man, maybe. I
It's
don't
a
know.
genetic thing. Yeah, there are some
It
very cool
happens.
people.
I mean, some of us have wisdom teeth and had to have them excruciatingly pulled out, and some people are not born with them, and they're very fortunate.
Right, right.
I was not one of the fortunate ones.
No, neither was I. I was in agony.
I believe this statement completely. I've got
Martin Rivera. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
Oh, okay. During dream state, we are visiting, experiencing other realities, dimensions, or another world.
I've got amazing. I write down when I have downloads or visions or strange, because I don't typically remember dreams, so I take that as travel dreams or messages. So
If you want to have precognitive dreams, all you really have to do is work real hard to remember your dreams. If you can start remembering 4, 5, 6 per night, I bet you some of them are going to have precognitive information, because you are out there planning your day. You're spying into the future. You're exploring your past. You're going to the very high realms.
Right.
Yeah.
You're doing all kinds of things.
I always tell people, just don't jump out of bed, because then it's like erased. Slowly get up and recall, and you will recall everything. I'm one of those people that feels like they dream from the minute they close their eyes till they wake up. I can get up, use the bathroom, come back, and go back into that same dream, or say, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Same thing with the UFO, by the way. Don't jump out of the UFO. Walk out slowly, and you'll remember.
I know.
Like a foot
on a banana
Jump
peel,
out, you might end up in the field.
But the problem is that, I mean, this is how some people remember missing time. They sit down and they meditate right after their sighting or their missing time encounter.
Which is a form of hypnosis. Yeah.
We have to do sponsor ID. Sorry.
We do. And I've got a big question. I'm going to say it now, and we'll answer it when we come back, because you're going to need to think about this. What are your thoughts on people who have had hypnosis have had and recalled experiences, ET experiences, and then can't find peace afterwards, where these so-called floodgates are open.
Okay.
When we
Hold
come
that
back.
thought.
So
Okay.
hang on,
Right.
everyone. Yes, I've been wanting to ask, but I didn't want to interrupt because I just love all of his stories. So anyways, on to the money shot, right, Michelle? Because we can't be here without them. You're listening to The Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano, coming to you live from the beautiful city of New Orleans on 105.3 and 107.7 FM. Tonight, we've got back with us, we call him family and our dear friend. We're talking to Preston Dennett in the house, and he is talking everything CE5, abductions and experiences. And right now we're on hypnosis. We're back on hypnosis. And a little bit of giants. That was kind of weird, right? Crazy. If you missed it and you're just tuning in now, don't worry about that. You can stream or listen to our archives on the platform you normally use. We want to give a huge thank you because without them, we wouldn't be here. And I just lost there we go. Without them, we wouldn't be here. We want to give a huge thank you to Folgers Coffee. Thank you for sponsoring our show from day one, and your continued support is greatly appreciated. We love you and thank you so much. We also would like to say thank you for our intro and outro to Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, Justin Snicker, award-winning composer and musician. You can find his music on Amazon and Bandcamp, and find him on Facebook and Instagram. Give him a like, give him a share, follow him. And while we're on that topic, don't forget about us. If you're on Facebook or you're on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button and share.
And Preston as well.
And Preston as well, yes.
That's right. Seek him out.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, Preston, stage is yours.
Yeah, if you go under hypnosis and then you realize you've opened up a can of worms.
Yes.
My heart goes out to you. That's what happened with the guy I mentioned earlier, Robert, who had an experience with his mom at age 7, because he wasn't really looking for that. It came out, and I think it was ultimately beneficial, but the hypnotist told him that I gave you the suggestion to remember stuff as you're ready. And he started waking up with nightmares, and he was so frightened, he would soak his sheets wet.
Wow.
And it was a real problem for a long time. And this is one of the warnings I give to people. Like, before you consider hypnosis, there's a few things I think you should do. One is write everything down. Write it all down. Because this is going to give you a record that you remember this, period. And it's very therapeutic. This helps you to relive it. And this will actually bring out new details.
Right.
As you go over and over what you wrote down, you're like, oh, I forgot this part. You start to construct a real, honest to God, fully conscious memory of what happened.
Right.
And then I would say meditate. Let's go over this experience in your mind. Sit down with someone who can question you in detail and ask questions that might spark little memories. I did this with one lady who had an encounter with a gray, and she was like 10 years old. And she's like, oh my God, I never thought about, and she got some new details just by being questioned.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing I would say is do dream work. When you go to bed, say, I'd like to remember what I'm comfortable remembering.
Right.
And this can pull you through an experience without dumping it on you. Because, so now let's say you didn't do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Darn it. You opened up that can of worms and now you're flooded with it. Yeah,
right.
We're a little bit SOL at this point, because you have to deal with it. And this is when you really want to talk with a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
This is why if you do hypnosis, please choose carefully who you pick to do this, because some people are not qualified therapists.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I like Barbara Lamb. She started out as a marriage, family, child counselor, and has the skills, and some of them don't.
So be careful. Yes.
So it's important. And what you should probably do is join a support group, because there are a lot of people who've had these experiences, and there are a lot of support groups.
Yes.
talk to a UFO researcher you trust. I'm always happy to help. That's my primary goal when people contact me. It's like, how can I help you? Do you have any questions? I do have suggestions, some of which I just mentioned. And do recognize that you're okay. You got through it.
Right.
That's something that's people really need to understand. Like, oh my God, this is a horrible part of my life. I don't like it. I'm like, listen, look, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
You know things. You actually learned something about yourself.
It's like it evolved.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, once the cat's out of the bag, the cat's out of the bag.
Yeah. Do you feel like people on an average, people who are experiencers or contactees, a lot of times do you find that they're lifelong contactees, experiencers, or do you have just a lot of runoffs at one time?
There are occasional one-offs. It's by far the exception.
Okay.
But I think what happens is, say your best friend is a contactee and you happen to go on a late night drive with them, and boom.
We are not driving in the dark late anywhere.
That happens.
Because we're more than best friends. So that is not.
There are one-offs. One lady, she swears up and down she's never had an encounter until the Greys came and healed her chronic back injuries.
Right.
Oh, wow.
She's a human rights activist. I'm like, well, there you go. That's why.
If we're healing, if we're getting healed, I will pick you up, Michelle, in about 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but generally speaking, almost always, I don't want to say always, but the majority, it's a lifelong thing.
Right.
And you might not even remember it at all. Bud Hopkins had a case, Michael Burchard. He used this name Steve Kilburn as a pseudonym. It's in Bud Hopkins' book, Missing Time. Didn't remember anything. All he had was a fear of a certain stretch of road. No idea. And he had lifelong contact. None. So there are a lot of people walking out there who have no idea and probably never will. It's just not their life path.
Love Manchester. Hi, Virgil. I wonder if NDEs fall into this at times. Why are people who have a lot of NDEs constantly pulled back into life? Is it them, or is ET interfering and saying nope?
No, once you have that NDE, you're primed. You're now ready to do out-of-body regular. You know the feeling. You've woken up. It's like having the walls of amnesia ripped away from you. In a fairly traumatic way. So it's normal for someone who has an NDE to have constant astral travel afterwards.
Right.
I will say that there are people who have, full on near-death experience and no memory of it, but they still went to the light. There are people saying, "Oh, I didn't go down the tunnel." I mean, yes, you did. It's just you didn't meditate after. I don't want to lay it on them. It's not their fault. They don't remember.
Yeah.
But,
Right.
It's that amnesia thing. There's this weird thing that's very difficult to bring back memories from a higher dimension.
Yes.
Thanks, Virgil. It's easy to be amazing when Preston's on.
Yeah, exactly. Makes it easy.
Makes it really easy.
Look amazing. Thank you.
I don't feel like an interview. It feels like just a discussion. That's why I'm so comfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
Chris Phoenix. Hi, Chris. Says NDEs and OBEs are totally different, right?
There's only one real difference. A couple. NDEs.
Well, you die in one.
You're basically having a forced out-of-body experience, and it follows a more set pattern. The person who has an NDE is gonna, let's call it a core experience, one that has all the elements. Because some people just go out of body and they're back. But a core NDE, they go out of body, they go down a tunnel of light, they reach the other side. There's their relatives, or perhaps some religious figure, even, or a spiritual figure.
Right.
They'll reach a barrier that they can't go beyond. They'll probably have a life review, and then they'll come back, and then they'll start having OBEs. OBEs are a little different in that they are basically controlled by you, and you can go beyond the barrier into the higher dimensions. You won't necessarily have a life review, but you probably will at some point. If you keep having OBEs, you're going to start reliving past lives. If you're having OBEs, you probably worked through a lot of psychological issues anyway.
Right. Right.
So that could be the reason why some people, like Michelle and I, can actually remember past lives. You know what I mean? We'll have experiences and we'll be like, I know exactly what happened here, and I'm well aware of certain places that were home and things like that.
Yeah.
Is that why? Because of these
I go back
OBEs?
to them, I think, because I've had vivid travel experiences where I
would
could
say
feel like
most
the
people-
grass on my feet or stone.
Yeah.
Most people have
Awesome.
past life memories, and they probably don't even know it.
Yes. Yeah.
'Cause
They're mistaken it for dreams, perhaps.
Yeah. You might dream you're someone else, but there's very easy ways to sort of target some past life memories. And one is, do you have talents that are really ingrained with you? You started playing piano at age 4 or something. You know, you're just a natural artist, or you're really good at one thing or another, or you absolutely have this phobia of, you know, something, planes or whatever it is, or planes is probably not a good example, but
no, I had one of bridges for a long time. I had to get past that one because I have to cross a bridge to get home. So.
Probably you died on a bridge.
I could see myself going off the bridge, and I could see the dashboard, and it was before I was born. It wasn't long before, so it was more recent.
I was like 8 years old, and I was obsessed with shipwrecks, just obsessed. Everyone's like, my friend was like, "What's wrong with Preston?" I want another book about a shipwreck.
Do you dive?
No, I don't.
We have to dive. That's the best way to experience them.
But that's interesting when you gravitate towards certain things like that. It's for a reason.
Tastes, you know, what your taste in food.
Yeah.
Deja
food.
vu.
It's my taste in food.
Deja vu.
Deja vu is big.
Let's talk deja vu.
Yeah.
That's
deja
a big
vu
one.
is a big pointer towards it.
Yeah.
You can go to Europe and you've never been there before, and you're like, I know that house.
It happens to me all the time when I travel, because I only travel to places I gravitate to.
Yeah. So everyone just has likes and dislikes, and tastes and fears that are a little bit irrational. It's like these point towards past lives.
Wow, Wayne, that's a good point. You said Amelia might be at the Point Pleasant Bridge collapse, might be why you were interested in Mothman. I do have a deep interest for Mothman.
She's OCD ridiculous.
Yes, I really am.
Yeah, you are.
Really?
I'm actually an advocate for him, I believe. I defend him. Because I see him as an omen and trying to spread good. I don't see it as evil or anything. And that's a good point, Wayne. I never thought about that.
Maybe you were a Mothman.
Doubt it.
Good question.
There's no stilettos in a Mothman. I think I wore stilettos in every life.
Question here.
Virgil, thank you for joining us all the way from Manchester, UK. Thank you so much. Virgil Kane asks, are angels good people that have gone to heaven?
Yeah, I think that depends on who you talk to. I'm going to say no. Because the classic religious interpretation of angels are spirits that have not incarnated.
Never walked the earth. Yeah.
They're still entities. And I've talked to people who swear up and down, I saw a winged angel and had human form, but had wings. And others like, well, no, it's just this glowing being. And I feel like it was an angel.
Right.
And there are authors on angels who conflate, spirits saving people's lives with angels.
Yeah, I'm with Dolly. Light beings.
Yeah. So I think that they are a type of entity like a demonic spirit who is not human. Ed and Lorraine Warren kind of conflated human spirits with demonic spirits. I'm like, I don't think so.
I knew Lorraine. Yeah.
I think you can go down that path towards goodness and that path towards evil, and basically vibrate at that frequency. I don't know how else to put it.
Right.
Either being can step into human form and take over. That I do believe, and I've worked with it, but not myself. But we do know from possession, it's not just the dark forces. an angel
get
could
step-ins
possess
from
a human as well.
disembodied spirits who just
Yes.
can't let go.
Animals
you know.
too, by the way.
Absolutely.
Pardon?
Well, I'm going to ask one. We'll answer. I'll put up Michael's question, and then I have one last question after this. So we'll
Okay,
start with-
thank you. Sorry, I've got an eye allergy that's driving me crazy. Michael Kennedy asks, please ask Preston about death being a lie and of the truth on seeing our loved ones on another plane. Okay.
Yeah, I used to be skeptical about life after death. And I thought that was it. You die, that's the end.
Yeah.
And I would get so mad when people say, "Oh, this person just passed on." I'm like, that's a euphemism. You're lying to me. They're gone forever. Don't
Yeah.
say passed on.
Right.
You're just trying to soothe me. And I was wrong. That is not a euphemism. It's a more
Right.
accurate description. It's walking through a door. Death does not. The problem with that word is that it's come to mean total obliteration. The end of all existence. And that's just not the case.
Right.
And there's a lot of evidence to support this. This is not just one person's near-death experience. The near-death experiences are a part of the evidence, but there's the channelers, there's the astral projectors,
Yeah.
there is all accounts of spirits.
I agree.
I mean, there's an enormous amount of evidence supporting life after death.
Mhm.
I agree.
I don't even like that term either, because we call ourselves alive. Are we still alive on the other side? Well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's different. It's not
Yeah.
3D life,
Energy.
but it's still, everything is made of light. There was this
Yes.
one, like, don't go towards the light. It's a lie. I'm like, well, good luck, because the other side is made of light. You will have
Right.
no choice. You
Right.
are
It,
made
it
of
pulls
light.
you in. It pulls you in.
Yeah.
It's very inviting and warm, and it's everything everybody says it is. It really is love.
Mhm.
Death is 100% a lie. It doesn't exist. Don't worry about it. People think the very worst thing that could happen is you die. Well, in a
It
sense,
shouldn't be feared. Like just shutting the vehicle, parking the car for the last time, right? And
yeah. And that
Yeah.
old car, which is awfully rusty and can't make a right turn anymore.
yeah,
Can't go at high speeds.
I'm going for the new model. See on the flip side. yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
some of us hate getting rid of our cars too, though.
So I'm
Yeah,
gonna
there's a
ask-
lot of accounts of people who've had near-death experiences, and they try so hard to get back in their body, and they can't do it. And they can. Or people,
Right.
who are channeled to see people who did not get back into their body.
So how many disembodied?
It's hard to leave your body permanently.
Yeah. So how many people are roaming around that they try, the body's just finished and they're just wandering. I've heard of that so many
It's a
times.
problem. It's a real problem.
Yeah.
And I know this because if you read the astral projection literature, most of them who have done this more than 2 or 3 times at some point are sort of inducted into soul rescue.
Right.
And
Yes.
I'm like, gosh, I'm not sure that's ever happened to me.
We do soul rescue for real.
Yeah,
I
it's
see
a
that everywhere,
thing.
for
It's
sure.
a
Yeah,
huge
we
problem.
do.
And I finally did it.
Large scales.
And after I did it, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've actually been doing this. And I didn't even realize it.
Try doing a battlefield all at one time.
Soul rescue is so important.
Yeah.
It's so important.
Soul
It really
rescue.
is.
Yeah, when the pandemic happened, I went out of body to some of the lower realms, and it was crowded.
Oh,
No.
yeah, I would think so.
And
because
because these people were all caught up in themselves. I finally cornered one guy. I'm like, what do you think of the pandemic? And he looked at me like I was absolutely nuts.
Right.
He's like, what do you think? Look around you. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, shoot.
Yeah, I know. It's really it's hard. It's hard, and difficult times always lead to difficult ends. I watch your question in a moment, Michael. I'm next.
Michelle's been waiting.
Michael, what job? Okay, I'm going to ask it a real sensitive question, only because Dolly and I were talking earlier. So she's got to wait a little bit because I've been on a booking frenzy, so she'll be booked to come on. But exopolitics.
Uh-oh.
I have to do it.
All right.
Boy.
It is a huge movement. There's a lot of people, really top-notch people, who are firm believers in this. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, here's how I will put it. I respect that people want to reach out to the ETs in a
Yes.
way that we can have open official interactions with them. But
Right.
if you think you're going to contact the alien gray queen or the president of the Greys or
Right.
the ambassador, you're going to have a rude surprise coming, because that's not how they work.
Right.
This is my opinion based on my research, interviewing of people. There is no galactic federation. There just isn't. There's no gray alien queen or anything like that. There's no federalized system. There's no money. There's no ambassadorship. There are ETs whose job it is to reach out to people, to
Right.
contact them.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's a good idea. Let's reach out to them.
Right.
But if you think they're going to come down and talk to the politicians, I think that they gave up on them long ago.
Right. So that's not going to be a thing,
No.
because there are, I mean, there are stories about, giant, theyve got cedar, SEEDR, cedar crafts buried in parts of the ocean, different parts of the world. And I think, I guess it's just whistleblowers who are in military, Navy, Air Force coming forward with these incredible stories.
Yeah, I keep the super incredible stories on a back burner. There's some I'm just prove it, because there's some that are just easily refutable through basic science.
Right.
And I don't want to name names, but I will say super soldiers 20 and back. I'm skeptical because you cannot live on Mars. You can't.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Sorry, Musk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with him, because he's got to know. He's got to be smart enough to know. Any, scientist, astronomer will tell you this, that the gamma radiation is deadly. And
Right.
you can see this with
Right.
the astronauts. They've been dealing with it. This
Yeah.
is a big deal.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of disinformation and misinformation. There are people who are in my lab. There are people who are flat out liars. There are people who are looking for a buck. There are people
Yeah.
who want attention. And, this is a field that's just mired with all kinds of, there are schizophrenics out there who are sure that
Yeah.
they're having contact.
Right.
And I don't really have cases that I feel are legit involving super soldiers. I just don't have them.
Yeah.
I've certainly talked to whistleblowers. I know
Right.
our government knows a lot more than they're talking about.
Oh, they do
I think
indeed.
probably there are, craft that are reverse engineered, and we're flying them around. I don't know that we're going to other planets with them,
Right.
but certainly we're doing stuff with them.
Right. Right.
And-
I agree.
But yeah,
But again, it's another
I focus
movement.
my research on contactees, so it's hard for me to speak to a lot of these more wild stories, because I don't get them. I don't have them.
Right. Right. Oh, she says no other. Okay. Yeah. Well, I had to ask because it seems to be another movement that's just making its way around. And there seem to be a lot of really big people on board with it. And some people are full on. So it's just wanted to put it out there,
Yeah.
Now,
it's important to address everything. We need to
Yeah.
consider all the evidence.
well, I trust your opinion. So that says a lot, because I don't trust a lot of things, you know what I mean? But you always come on with positive messages. You have no reason, these are stories from people from all over the world. I was just going to put up your list of books to show said stories from all over the world. 1 second. Here we
Everyone
go.
deserves a platform, even people who, are telling stories that are a little wild.
Right.
If someone's in my lab, well, we should listen to what their experience is.
Right.
Those books are impressive, Preston.
Oh yeah, there's lots of them.
Beautiful covers.
Yeah. Yes, they absolutely are. So see, these are all stories, from people from all over the world. And I love it. I just think I love the positive aspect of it, because there's a lot of scary out there. And I don't like to lend to it, so it's nice, it's refreshing when you come on and you come up with these great stories. And even when you don't agree with something, I love that you basically are very, shall we say, very good about how you put things. So I thank you for that. You're not getting us booted off YouTube, which is great. So that could happen. But answering Michael's question, Dolly is on, drum roll. Okay, Dolly is on July the 5th, unless she's available if we have cancellation. Because like I said, I've been on a booking frenzy the last few days. So I was sick for 3 weeks, and I just had all these people I had to get back to, and it was just like, oh my gosh. So anyway, she is coming back. So yes, be ready. Anyway,
before you know it, it'll be here.
It will
time
be
flies
fast.
here.
And because we booked so far ahead, and right now we're in cough cold season, so people have to reschedule. So we have to slide some people in. So you never know. Some people just forget. Some people just like, oh, I had something come up, or so it's like absolutely. So it can definitely happen. Dolly's one of those people who has again open door policy, and we love having everybody come on with positive messages with things like this. So. But anyway, so look at that! All the niceness just coming on in.
Oh, thank you, Preston. You are so wonderful. Great show. Look, everybody loves you. This is a great interview. Oh, Preston Dennett is very diplomatic, great guest. He's always a great guest. That's why he's on once a month.
That's what we call you.
We love him. Can you tell?
But thank you for joining us. It is always a pleasure. Well, you're not being biased at all with Dolly.
No, Dolly. We love Dolly too. We love Dolly as well.
There. So,
Michael Kennedy says, "Thank you, Preston, for your insights. Great episode. Thank you from Tamara." You're so loved, Preston.
Everybody
you make it
loves
so
Preston.
easy. I could talk to you for like the whole day. I want to just Zoom you and Dolly and just talk for hours. Like,
I know.
Well, I have to say, I feel the same way about you guys. You make it so easy.
Thank you.
I love doing your show.
Thank you. We love having you on, and I love that. I love hearing all of your stories. And of course, you are back on. Hold on. I have to do another drum roll moment because you have a new book coming out. So can you plug the new book? Because you're back on June the 14th, and you figured your book will be out then.
Yeah, which, by the way, is the anniversary of the Topanga Canyon UFO Wave, one of my first books.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. So that is,
are you going to, by the way, but
we can talk about it right now. You have like 15 minutes.
Well, yeah, the new book is going to be awesome. It's going to be a big one. I tried to keep it to 200 some pages. It's 320.
Wow.
Which is awesome. 20 first-hand accounts.
Aww.
Every single chapter, people saw humanoids. So that's basically the theme. It's all about humanoid encounters.
Right.
A lot of onboard experiences, but some people know they weren't taken on board. And it's every kind of humanoid there is. And I'm serious. I've got cases of angels, of demons, of Bigfoot, of little blue men, of light beings, of grays, different types of grays. Mantids, reptilians.
Wow.
Weird beings.
Wow. I'm so looking forward to this. I'm just like, hurry up, Preston.
Oh, what's also cool is it's all over the world. I talked to a guy from New Zealand, Australia, France, England, Canada, Peru, other places, all across the U.S. as well. There's a couple of other countries I'm forgetting.
That's insane. I can't wait to hear about
so much
this.
support.
Excellent. I know. It's great. Everybody's so chiming in. It's just like, wow, okay.
I'm so excited about this one. I am so excited.
We need 3 hours with Preston. 2 is not enough.
Thanks for that, because you're making us wait too much. I can't wait.
All your books are fabulous.
You'll probably get the scoop because it's probably going to come out right around that point.
Well, thank you. We love getting the scoop first, makes us feel special.
Yes.
So I
Well,
know.
you are special. You know
Thank
that.
you. We feel the
Aw.
same way
We
about
love
you
you.
as well. Yes, thank you. So look at that. Still going. Look at that. Still going.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, thank you for joining us. Of course, I will be in touch with all the data, listenership, things like that. I like the links.
Oh, that's
And,
always fun. Like, wow, look, how many viewers. That's amazing.
I know, isn't it nice? You just sit there and wait. And then
The
I send
people
it
love
to you
you.
like 4 days later. It's like,
Yeah.
so,
The archives are phenomenal. You have a
they do
huge
really
following.
well. Yeah, they do
Yeah.
really well. Everybody loves you. It's the way it is, But we're also on Roku TV. And there's a lot of people that are just, joining on that page as well. And we're getting really good reviews from people there. So that's just a whole other avenue altogether. And that channel, for everybody who's listening, is continuing to grow. And the network will be adding things like Samsung TV, Amazon TV, Apple TV. It's just going to keep going. So, Michael, are you starting? Are you heading up the Preston
Fan Club? There we go. Start that group page.
I
Thanks,
know.
Michael. Checks in the mail.
I know. Exactly. Right?
Aw, Dana, we love you, Preston. All that love. That is amazing. I love it.
It is. So, thank you for joining us, and I will be in touch. It's always such a pleasure.
My pleasure too. Thank you. And honor.
Thank you. Believe me when I tell you, it's truly ours. All right.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Preston.
Thank
Good
you,
night.
Preston. Good night.
Night.
Bye.
Bye. Well, we have come to the end of another amazing segment. And I mean amazing. It's always delightful when Preston is joining us. He's just a breath of fresh air at all times. So you're going to see him coming back on. He's going to be talking about his new book. We're really excited about it. So again, huge thank you to Preston Dennett for joining us this evening. A huge thank you to you guys in chat room. You guys are like bloody superstars. I couldn't believe it. I was having a hard time keeping up. Anyway, it's kind of a toss-up because we're trying to keep up with the chat room, and Preston's just so informative. We're just sort of mesmerized by what he's saying. But we appreciate you all. So again, I have to say, share. If you're liking what you see, please, whatever platform that you're on, follow, comment, share. We really appreciate all of it. Here on United Public Radio, you're going to start seeing stuff coming up on podcast awards. Because yes, the Outer Realm for the third year, among other shows on the network, you're going to start seeing over the coming weeks a lot of promo and stuff coming up. And we are under, I think, best female podcasters, or female podcasts, or female hosts. I don't even know. It's hard to keep up with that. I
We
know,
have to
it's
look
terrible.
at that and get it for you. Yeah.
But anyway, when the voting opens up, go in and please consider us and other shows on the network. As everything comes up, we'll see who's definitely and which shows are definitely going to be nominated. So again, thank you very much for tuning in. Next week, we've got new faces that have never been on the show before. And I'm hoping you guys will tune in and check them out. We've got Wednesday night for the first time, Wallace Wagner Jr. He's going to be discussing his new book, Within Grasp. So here's a little snippet from what's inside. Discover hidden truths that existed before the Bible, which still exists today, regardless of what we were typically taught. Follow me on my path outside the imposed gates of Christianity that commenced with his UAP TikTok sightings of 2016. My God, sounds intense. I love it. Can't wait for that. Thursday night, also for the very first time, Barbara DeLong, and she's going to be discussing her new book, Before Roswell. And she's got one heck of a good resume as well. I'll tell you, you get on her website and boy, is there a lot of information there. So again, check us out next week. Have a great weekend. Be safe, behave a bit, and we'll see you next week. Good night, everyone.